Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. Hope everybody's having a wicked weekend. It's almost over, and then the work week begins. So, lots of fun there. Now, this one's a viewer request. Like, somebody who actually wanted me to do a couple stories that they emailed to me there. So, why wouldn't I, right? I mean, it makes you guys happy and gets me learning about stuff that I've never heard before. So, this one's going to be the unsolved murder of Lindsay Buziak. Now, Lindsay Elizabeth Buziak was born April 2nd, 1983, and she died February 2nd, 2008. And she was an amazing Canadian real estate agent, and she had real estate showings on the go all the time. Now, with real estate showings, like, you meet all kinds of people from all kinds of places, and anyone can book a showing, and you really don't know who you're going to end up dealing with. And, I mean, that's like any job, any customer or whatnot, right? But in this case, like, the risks of that kind of got a little high, and shit kind of went sideways on February 2nd, 2008. And this was at a property viewing at Saanich, BC. Now, Saanich is like a little suburb of Victoria, BC, and a man and woman had posed as a highly profitable clients, and they were actually seeking $1 million home. Now, a little backstory here about Lindsay. Like, her parents were Jeff Buziak and Evelyn Buziak, and she also had a sister named Sarah. And like I said, Lindsay had like a promising career as a real estate agent. Like, everything was like starting to excel for her, and her friends and family also like described her as like very popular and caring. Like, she had a boyfriend who was also into real estate, Jason Zalo. Now, in late January 2008, Buziak actually got a call from a lady who said her and her husband were seeking a $1 million home rather quickly, with a budget of about $1 million. Now, the caller had a foreign accent and issued a fake name, as it was later determined. So, a little taken back by this phone call, like, Lindsay asked the caller, like, hey, like, how did you get my personal cell? And, you know, she just said that she got it from one of her previous clients. But, I mean, Lindsay was she was a junior employee, so, I mean, her number wasn't really listed or anything like that. And Lindsay also told her boyfriend Jason and her dad about the strange phone call, and she did voice her concerns on that. And her boyfriend Jason actually encouraged her to meet up with the client for the commission, because, I mean, such a sale of that for such an expensive home would be amazing. Like, why wouldn't you, right? And Jason, just for out of safety, he would wait outside the property just to reassure her if anything had went down. So a few days after the phone call, Lindsay went ahead and started looking for like suitable homes for them to view. So she made arrangements for the client on February 2nd, 2008, around 5:30 p.m. And the listing that she had in mind was around $964,000. So it was around that $1 million mark. So this place had been vacant for about a year. And on the date that they were going to go to the showing, Lindsay and her boyfriend actually had lunch just a little before the house showing, and they squared up the bill around 4:24 p.m., and then left separately in their vehicles. Lindsay returned home to change quickly just before the viewing, and her boyfriend went to a mechanic shop just to pick up one of his colleagues. And there's actually video footage of this, showing him leaving with his colleague from the auto shop around 5:30 p.m. So The couple exchanged texts, and Lindsay was aware that he'd be late to the showing. And so the showing was at a house in De Sousa Place, kind of like a cul-de-sac of like 4 houses. And this was 1702 De Sousa Place, Saanich, BC. And it was kind of like on the outer end of the road, like an intersection of Torquay Drive. So the caller told Lindsay she would be coming alone, and actually a man and a woman showed up together at 5:30 at the address. So according to witnesses, they saw a 6-foot-tall white man with dark hair, a blonde-haired woman, roughly between 35 and 45 years old. She was wearing a very distinctive dress, kind of had like a weird pattern on it, and like they noticed as she walked up the cul-de-sac. Now, seeing Lindsay shake hands with the couple, it kind of was like a little bit weird, like it was like the first time that they were meeting, and the witnesses noticed that as well. And about 5:40 p.m., her boyfriend Jason and his colleague had arrived outside the home. So as they pulled up, Jason saw a figure through the house glass door, and they pulled up to the house, and they parked there for about 10 minutes on the street. So Jason he didn't want to be nosy or anything like that, right? So he just chilled for another 10 minutes, and then texted Lindsay, just to see if things were okay. But she never opened the message. So 20 minutes go by now, and they just waited outside the house. So he wanted to go check on Lindsay. So Jason walked to the front door and kind of jiggled the handle, and he found it locked. So he peeked in the window of the front door and seen his girlfriend's shoes in the front porch. Now he recalls no sign of movement inside, and nobody answered his repeated knocking at the door. So he thought the whole situation to be very fucking suspicious. So he decided to call 911. Now Jason's friend, he located a gap in the fence just around the back, and he entered the little garden area, and he noticed the patio door was left wide open. So he passed through the main level to unlock the door for Jason, who was out front. So Jason, on the phone with 911, just told the operator that they're going to enter the house, and he ended the phone call. So usually staying online with 911 is usually a good thing, but I get it. He was worried about his girlfriend, and definitely panicking just a little bit. So that'll make anyone do things out of the ordinary. Now Jason ran upstairs immediately, and he found Lindsay lying in a pool of blood in the master bedroom. He called 911 back, and this would be for the second time, with emergency services arriving shortly after. As paramedics arrived on the scene, she was pronounced dead, and Lindsay was stabbed multiple times, and she had no signs of any defensive wounds. So, no signs of a defensive wound kind of indicates that she was most likely stabbed from behind, and she had no indication of what would happen next. And all her possessions were still intact. She wasn't robbed or sexually assaulted in any way, just murdered in cold blood by these fucking assailants. Now, police first looked at Jason and his colleague, and they were first arrested and taken into custody. But their version of the story ended up being verified by surveillance footage from the mechanic shop, because it was time-stamped. So there was no way that they could have committed the murders, and they were released without charges. And Jason ended up being very cooperative with police, and he also passed a polygraph test. Now, the crime scene, it didn't have any DNA fingerprints or much physical evidence, and this kind of led police to think outside the box, to believe the murder was a very well organized by people, and that they've definitely killed before. So police kind of believed that the killers were leaving through the front door until they seen Jason's car pull up front, and then they took off with the back patio door through the fence, and then that led to their vehicle on Torquay Drive. Now, even the cops think it was like a professional kill, and the reason why the police think that is mainly because it was carefully planned. And the cell phone that they used by the unknown woman was used to call Lindsay Buziak. This was purchased in Vancouver months before the murder, and it was never used until the call about the house viewing was made. Now, the account was set up in the name of Paulo Rodriguez, so it's definitely a fake name. And it was actually registered to a legit business address. But police think that the business address, or like the business has no connection to it, and it was just a random address that was chosen. The phone was deactivated right after the murder and has not been used since. So, according to the cell phone tower pings, the phone traveled on the ferry from Vancouver the day before the murder. So the phone was bought, set up, used once, and discarded, just for the sole purpose of the murder. And Jason's family were also investigated by police, because they had, connections to the cul-de-sac. De Sousa Court is actually named after the developer Joe De Sousa, and he's actually a friend of associate Shirley Zello, and she's Jason's mother. So the part of the cul-de-sac was still under construction at the time of the murder, and De Sousa was at the location roughly an hour before the murder, because he was supervising some construction work in the area. And police actually stated that no one in the Zello family is actually a suspect in the crime. Most of this is just coincidental, right? And in September 2010, NBC actually aired a Dateline episode, and this was on the murder of Lindsay. So the episode was called Dreamhouse Murder. Now, Saanich, BC police revealed that back in December 2007, it was roughly 8 weeks prior to Lindsay's murder, that Lindsay tried to contact the friend of her ex-boyfriend while she was on a visit to Calgary, Alberta. So this was on January 22nd, 2008. There was a large drug bust, and this was the biggest in Alberta's history. So the friend that she called was arrested and accused of being having a major role in that drug trafficking operation. So there's speculation that Lindsay's murder was carried out by a drug cartel, because she was believed to be a police informant. But detectives did investigate that as a possibility, but it was eliminated because, she was in fact not a police informant. She wasn't into drugs or anything like that. She's pretty clean cut. She was a real estate agent, right? So that's all they had there on that. But yeah, even a crime scene investigator, her name was Yolanda McClary, and there was also a veteran homicide detective. His name was Dwayne Stanton. They were in agreement that her murder was not a contracted one or related to a drug cartel, because the murder was so brutal and amateur-like. They deemed it to be personal, and it seemed to be planned by somebody who was close to her, maybe someone who had access to inside information at the real estate office that she worked at. There was also another drug bust that was being investigated by police that they kind of thought they had a link to her murder. Now, one man's phone was actually wiretapped, mainly because of the high level of drug trafficking in the British Columbia and Alberta area. So with these wiretaps, police uncovered info that led to raids back in 2003. So Lindsay and her boyfriend, Jason, their phones were tapped, and this was mainly because of the association with some of the people that were in the group, but it was also later dismissed because Lindsay had no known involvement in drug use or drug trafficking, and she wasn't on the witness list during any of the trial at the time. And there's also some details that came out in 2008 from a close friend of Lindsay's. Her name was Nikki. So she claimed that she was woken up by a phone call in the middle of the night from an unknown number. Now, not much is remembered of what she said on the phone, because she was half asleep, right? The only thing that stood out to Nikki was the strange accent, and that she couldn't quite put her finger on. And Nikki kind of got scared, because she remembered that Lindsay told her about the unidentified client calling with her odd accent as well. And after the phone call, Nikki called the number back 20 to 30 times until the call was answered. And this call was answered by Shirley Zello, Jason's mother. Now, Nikki asked her why she called her phone, as the two didn't know each other. And Shirley had replied that she intended to call her secretary, who was also named Nikki. And she had no idea why, the phone number was in her phone. And other than that, her son might have added it to her contacts. Shirley actually denied that this event took place, and it hasn't been publicly revealed whether Lindsay's friend Nikki, whether these claims are investigated by police. And Lindsay's father, Jeff, he actually does an annual walk that takes place February of each year, just to keep this in the public eye, right? So, what was it, August 2017? An investigative website created by Jeff and run by him received a comment saying, "I killed Lindsay, and the stupid cops will never prove it." So most likely this is posted by a person who has nothing better to do, or they're just trying to cause shit. So in 2020, Capital Daily had requested a release of the public records that related to the case, and they reported previous unpublished information. So these documents that they found were revealed that police were aware that 2 cell phones were used by the suspects of the murder. The one phone with the Vancouver number used to contact Lindsay, and the other was used to check the voicemail of the first phone. So it's kind of unusual, and there was also some internet activity that was associated with Lindsay, right before her murder. Kind of drives police to think that violent criminals on her Facebook friends list might have played a role in her murder. February 2021, Sandwich police actually gave announcements that they actually had advancements in DNA analysis, along with some other technology, and this created new leads in the case. And the FBI are now currently working with the police divisions on the case since 2020. So I'll play a little clip on that as well. So one sec.
My name is Constable Marcus Anastasiadis, and I am the Public Information and Communications Officer with the Saanich Police Department. I am here today to update you on our efforts in the investigation into the murder of Lindsay Buziak. Our tight-knit community wants to understand what happened to Lindsay 13 years ago, as we are all connected to what happens in this area. To find those answers, we have established a task force comprised of new investigators who are taking a fresh look at the case. The task force has obtained the assistance from the FBI and continued support from the RCMP. Both agencies have provided valuable assistance in the development of new leads and forensic evidence. Lindsay was an ambitious 24-year-old, described by her family and friends as popular, caring, and determined to become successful in her career as a licensed real estate agent. On February 2nd, 2008, shortly after 5:30 p.m., Lindsay was murdered in a vacant home located at 1702 D'Souza Place in Saanich. Lindsay had gone to the home for the purpose of showing it to potential buyers who are still unidentified. Lindsay met the unidentified individuals outside the home at approximately 5:30 p.m. Shortly thereafter, she was fatally stabbed in the upstairs bedroom of the home. Her boyfriend entered the vacant home shortly after her murder and called police. The new investigative team is examining all possible suspects. Investigators continue to follow up on every tip and lead we receive. Investigators are reviewing and retesting evidence, including items from the crime scene, as well as digital evidence. Technology not available at the time of the crime has allowed us to develop new investigative leads. As many of you have likely seen in the media lately, advancements in fields such as genealogy and DNA analysis has led to the resolution in many other cases. Investigators are out conducting interviews related to this case. We thank those people who have already been interviewed, as we anticipate speaking with you again and appreciate your patience. For those who have not engaged with us previously, we know there is likely information that has not been shared. We believe people familiar with the circumstances surrounding this case remain in our community. It is sometimes the case that people who may have knowledge initially do not come forward due to their close relationships with those who may have been involved, or out of concern for their reputation and standing in the community and among friends. We recognize relationships change over time, as do people and their perspectives. It is not too late to come forward. Further, there are times when people are unknowingly brought into a situation by the person or persons responsible. Rest assured, we have the ability to filter out innocent people and those whose roles in the events were inadvertent. We ask that members of the community think back to Saturday, February 2nd, 2008. Please visit the Saanich Police website or call our information line at 250-475-4356 or toll free at 1-888-980-1919 to provide any information you may have, no matter how small it may seem. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to our community's response and assistance.
Now, February 2021, Saanich Police gave announcements of advancements in DNA analysis, along with some other technology that they're working on. And this created new leads in the case. So the FBI are actually working with police divisions on the case, and this has been since 2020. Now, Detective Sergeant Horsley, he talked about Lindsay and said that there's nothing in her life that indicated that she was involved in anything criminal or violent. And her relationship was fine, there was no abuse, anything like that. And this was all due to a thorough background check. It's believed that her killers had like a mistaken identity maybe, and that Lindsay revealed some information that she shouldn't have. And she was somehow connected to a dangerous person without knowing it. And he said you can be a person who just works and minds their own business, but through a brief network of friends, you could be connected to dangerous people. And, that usually comes with very bad things. Police Sergeant Dean Jansen said this killing was very well organized, with a lot of planning and effort and forethought put into it. Lindsay's father also hired private investigators from the Zonta Research Group, and they're of Vancouver, and they wanted them to look into the murder itself since the police investigation is still ongoing. And there's also a lawsuit from Shirley Zalo against Lindsay's father, and I'll play a clip on that as well. So this is all I got for you folks. Thanks for tuning back in. Have a wonderful week.
More than 14 years after Victoria realtor Lindsay Buziak was brutally murdered in this Saanich home, there are still no arrests, no suspects. But there is one stunning new development, a civil court case filed in part against Lindsay's dad, Jeff Buziak.
It angers me, of course. It saddens me. It disgusts me. It stresses me out, of course.
Buziak is named in one of two defamation suits filed by Shirley Zalo, the mother of Lindsay's former boyfriend, Jason Zalo. They stem from comments made on Jeff Buziak's Justice for Lindsay website. Two women from Vancouver and Chilliwack have since been identified as the alleged authors of comments targeting Zalo. In one of several instances, the suit claims the poster made false statements that suggest Zalo murdered or planned the murder of Lindsay Buziak, participated in the killing, or that Zalo is a criminal or twisted psychopath. Police have previously stated that Jason Zalo, seen here in an episode of Dateline, and his family are not suspects in the case.
For the longest time, Ms. Zalo didn't want to commence a defamation lawsuit against someone who'd lost their daughter. But all efforts to say, stop accusing me of murder, have just been rebuffed or ignored.
The claim says the false allegations have caused Zalo to suffer loss and damage to her reputation, loss of income, stress, anxiety, and other mental suffering.
She's accused of killing someone. It's been can you imagine just how that feels?
Jeff Buziak is listed because of his role as owner and operator of the site where the comments were made. The suit claiming he was aware of defamatory words on the site and actually encouraged people to publish words defamatory of the plaintiff. Buziak says that's not the case and is surprised he can be held responsible.
Because somebody owns a social media site, you have to suffer the consequences of other people putting their personal opinions on there, I think is ludicrous.
Buziak says he and the other two women named in the suit haven't been served the paperwork yet. None of these allegations have been proven in court.
Twisted Tales.